All right, we have started the recording. I'm super excited about this training. I know I emailed you ladies today with a couple notes about why I just wanted as many people on the call as possible. And obviously, if you're here and you're able to make it, great. And then if you're catching the recording, please listen to the whole thing. This is like one of the most important monthly calls I've done in a little bit. And I think it's just because it's so seasonal and summer training is something that can truly impact our performance. So I definitely want you ladies, whether you're catching the recording or you're on the call, please stick around until the end because there's going to be a lot of important information. And when I give you training plan feedback, if it's in relation to this, like I'm just going to have you go back to this recording. So definitely want to make sure that you absorb as much of this information as possible because heat and humidity are the devil. And if you haven't already realized that, you will realize that later this summer. So I have a lot to cover on the agenda tonight. First, we'll start nice and simple, just go through some of the risks of summer running and how we're going to mitigate those. Then I'll get into some of the best times to run, highlight some of the things that you should be wearing and bringing on every single run. We'll talk about some heat and humidity guidelines. Then we'll talk about how to adjust your pace. And I have a guide from one of my other run coach friends. Some of you might know her, so I'll reference that later on. And then we'll do the giveaway for the free one-on-one call for anyone who is on the call. So let's hop right into it. So let's start with the risks and how to mitigate. So some of the biggest risks I've highlighted here. Number one is dehydration. Obviously, I'm not going to explain what dehydration is. I think we've probably all felt it, whether it's been on a run or another workout day, or just in general if you're running really low on sleep. So it can lead to additional exhaustion, some dizziness, low blood pressure, low blood pressure, or increased urination. So I just want you to be aware of this, and we'll talk about, again, how to mitigate it. Muscle cramps, if you ever experience a muscle cramp on a run, likely associated with dehydration and just training too hard in some of those hotter temperatures. If you do get a muscle cramp on your run, I want you to stop. Do not push through. You can like walk home or wherever you are. Of course, worst case, like maybe get an Uber or have someone come and pick you up. They aren't dangerous, but you shouldn't push through them because it's only going to get worse. And the thing that I get worried about is just injuring yourself. So I want to make sure that you stop and just take things nice and easy. And then the third thing is headache. So biggest side effect of dehydration and is really just a true indicator that you should be drinking more before and during the run. So if you do get a headache and it is after your run or during your run, that is a telltale sign that we should be hydrating more. So I want to make sure that that's top of mind if we start to feel some of that. I know personally for myself, right after runs, I used to be like very much plagued by headaches, and I started to really learn how to appropriately hydrate for my body. So hopefully no one's experienced these too much, but if you do, I just want this to be a sign that we need to try to mitigate some of that stuff. A couple things on how to mitigate. These aren't everything, but I highlighted the biggest ones. And one thing I didn't say at the start of this call, but for anyone who hasn't joined any of these calls before, please drop any questions in the meeting chat and I'll field them as we go. Circling back, how to mitigate. So first one, time your runs. We're going to learn more about the ideal times to run in the next section. And this is particular to summer training. So I want to make that crystal clear when we talk about making sure that you're going out at an ideal time. It doesn't matter as much when it's the fall or the winter, but during the summer, it is extra critical. So I do want to make sure that we're paying close attention to that. Adjusting your paces, there's going to be a whole section on this. And if you take nothing else away from this call, please take this away because I will be going into many details about this. But in hot weather, it's going to feel harder to do the same types of workouts than in the cooler temps that we are just coming off the heels of. Your body, the reason of your body is using a lot of that energy to regulate your body temp. So very naturally, your abilities are going to be compromised as a result. So really merely just accepting more of like the mental component that you're going to be slower and really continuing to focus on effort is going to be key here. So for all of you, we already know about easy effort running. A lot of you have come leaps and bounds in terms of really slowing down and being more intentional on your runs. The biggest thing in summer that you're going to have a challenge with is knowing that you need to slow down more and potentially resisting the urge to. And I'll talk about some of the side effects on trying to push through when we need to slow down even more in a couple slides, but do want to call that out. And again, we'll nail that point home throughout this entire call. And the third one is staying hydrated. So a lot of the dehydration symptoms that we talked about, we need to bring water to help prevent dehydration in the summer. We'll also talk about bringing along electrolytes, but the hotter it is, the more you sweat, and that's just a very natural occurrence in the summer. Dehydration is going to put a massive, massive load on our body. I cannot stress that enough. As a result, your heart rate is going to spike. If your heart rate is spiking, one of the telltale signs is that we are not hydrated enough. The other telltale sign is that we might be pushing more than we need to. So really think through those pieces when you're out there on your runs. And just like you guys have practice slowing down on easy effort runs, like all of this stuff is going to take practice, but I want you guys to keep these things in mind. Couple tips to stay hydrated, because that is one of the biggest points. Number one, drink electrolytes. Electrolytes help you retain water, meaning that we'll be more hydrated, whether that's liquid IV. Many of you know I use Scratch. There's a lot of different electrolyte brands out there. You can, of course, use Gatorade too. The biggest thing here, of course, is practicing on your runs and trial and erroring and figuring out what sits well in your stomach. You will learn as we go, but I'll stress it now. I don't want you just chugging electrolytes as you run or right before your run. That's going to do your body a disservice, which we'll learn in number 3. Number 2 is to avoid alcohol. So the night before a run, I would recommend avoiding drinking. When you do drink alcohol, it does cause your body to remove water from your body at a much, much faster rate than other liquids. We're all human. We all have lives. I would use your best judgment call. Would I do it the night before a long run or a mid-distance run? Definitely not. It's just going to do our body a disservice. These are some of the things that don't flare up as much in the other seasons of the year. And that's why summer training can be such a beast for people who don't know how to really train during the summer. So just trying to give you some tips on what I would do, because it's already going to be hard to get out there and adapt your body to running in these temperatures. So that would be my second biggest tip. And then the third would be drink little and often. So kind of already talked about this, but chugging water right before a run is a terrible idea. Your kidneys are going to end up flushing it out. If you've ever had mid-run bathroom breaks or you just feel like you have to stop immediately, this is why. It can also dilute our sodium levels. So that's going to increase our risk from just being too overloaded in water. And that's also a symptom that we don't want. So taking thoughtful sips, I know some of you have heard me say that over in the elite bucket where we talk about nutrition, but really taking thoughtful sips throughout your run, taking thoughtful sips before you go out, and also taking thoughtful sips after. Just want to make sure you feel hydrated, but not chugging down water just because you know you need to stay hydrated. Just being very consistent with it throughout the day, before your run, during your run, and after your run. Questions on that section? And feel free to come off mute or drop them in the chat. Okay, I will keep going, but if you need to type a question, definitely type and I will get to it. So best times to run. I would run very early in the morning or late evening after the sun sets. I know that everyone has schedules and lives. In the summer, it really takes a hit if we can't hit the morning or after the sunset. So kind of start to think through your schedule. Even if you can optimize this for, let's say you're training 4 days a week, even if you can optimize this for 2 to 3 days, that would be ideal. So really start to challenge yourself and see if there's opportunities where that occurs. Drop a 1 in the chat if you have gone out during 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and just felt like absolute garbage. Like, I can't believe I am out here right now. Yeah, and I've seen some of you comment that recently too, so I knew I would hit the audience. But yes, we learn by doing. And so sometimes like that 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. bucket is ideal for the schedule, but it's not ideal for the season. So really encouraging you ladies to think about how we can get out there early in the morning or after sunset. Personally, for me, I know everyone knows I'm up early, but especially in the summer, because I don't want to deal with this at all. And it's just more stress on our body than we need. I'll obviously give you tips throughout this call on how to kind of optimize if we need to get out there during those hours, but just something to give yourself some grace for. If you hit that bucket, that 11 to 3 p.m. time frame, just know why it feels harder than it needs to. UV rays are the strongest between 8 to 10 and 2 to 4. I would definitely recommend wearing sunglasses or a hat. I always try to wear a hat during those times if I do have to go out, just to make sure that I'm protected. We'll talk about like what to bring and what to wear in a little bit, but just wanted to call that out with the UV rays. I personally think, and this is a totally biased opinion, but running in the morning is a very great way to set the tone for the day and just guarantee that you're going to beat the heat. The dangerous thing about running in the evening after the sun sets is that you might not have the sun, but you might still have those hotter temperatures with the heat and the humidity. You have less of a chance of that in the morning. It will still be brutal if it's a heat wave, like it's going to be brutal in the morning, it's going to be brutal at night, but just really trying to plan if you can. This is more motivation to become like a morning person, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, just to know that you don't have to really endure the toughest times in the day. Questions? All right, we are cruising. So what to wear and bring. This is not everything, but these are the biggest things I would think through, and I would even take some notes if you're like, crap, I don't bring that and I want to bring that. Personally, for what to wear, I would avoid cotton. It's a very huge sweat absorber that will create heavy and wet clothes. Your sweat is not going to evaporate and you will have a very hard time cooling down. I did a couple years ago a like intake in my wardrobe and pushed everything to the side that was cotton and didn't touch it all summer. Even in temperatures that are like high 50s and low 60s, you're going to feel it. Even in, I was going to say high 50s, low 60s, and like at least 60% humidity, which is not a heck of a lot, you will start to feel it if you're wearing cotton. So just something to take note of. Head to toe, I would toss everything to the side for the summer. Lightweight shorts, tops, sports bras, that's what I would look for. I would personally look for nylon. That's super loose fitting and permeable, meaning that you're just going to feel a little bit more of a breeze and you won't get hot and sweaty like you would with cotton. I also would pick light colors. This is more important on those like 70, 80, 90-degree days, just to help your body breathe and cool it very naturally. Light colors do reflect the sun from our skin. So I typically try to wear some like brighter, lighter colors. I typically toss the blacks and dark blues to the side if it's super hot. And then moisture wicking socks. I would not wear 100% cotton. Your feet are going to sweat a lot easier, and the cotton socks can also lead to blisters. So if you've ever had blisters during the summer and been very confused why, because you're like, well, I didn't wear new shoes or I didn't really like rub my foot against the shoe too much, likely it is because of the sock. So I would look for more synthetic blends that wick away that moisture. I put some recommendations here: polyester, acrylic. Definitely let me know if you need some sort of recommendation, but there's so many different active wear sock brands, and even just doing a simple Amazon search and just looking at the fabric, all of them are going to be totally fine as long as they're not cotton. So questions on those items? Okay. Other things to think through, like I said, I would personally wear sunglasses or a hat. So for sunglasses, we want to wear the sunglasses because sun-related eye damage caused by UV rays is a big problem, and I want us to avoid it. Like I said, I would wear the sunglasses when the UVs are the strongest, so anywhere between 8 to 10 or 2 to 4. And I would also look to get sunglasses that protect you from both UVA and UVB rays. I would actually look up running sunglasses on Amazon. There's like a bunch of good different brands, and they have so many colors and so many models, and they're very affordable. I'm trying to think of, I think Gooder's one that I know of that I really like. I normally opt for the hats, but if anyone has any good, yeah, Gooder, perfect, Martina, yeah. If anyone has any good sunglasses or hat recommendations, definitely drop them in the chat so that the other ladies can take up on them. I know we did a similar type of thing in the winter too. Hat and sunscreen. So a hat obviously helps keep your face in the shade. You can do a visor or a cap. A visor is particularly nice if you know that your head just gets a little bit more sweatier. So if you're more of an individual who sweats quite a bit and you know that, I personally would go with a visor just so you have some like cooling mechanism on the top of your head, so you still have an opening. If you're good with a hat, I would go with a hat. Just like we did in the winter clothing training, I am like a stan for Lululemon hats. I have 3 or 4 for this summer that I really like. They're moisture wicking, they're nice and light, and their fabric is good enough where I can throw it in a wash with like all my other athletic clothes and it'll wash perfectly. So, yeah, Delaney, I have that one, the ponytail hat. Yeah, it works super well on all those Lululemon hats you can throw in the laundry and they won't get damaged at all. So I think those are really, really nice. And then I would apply sunscreen before you get dressed. So I would just apply it all before you start to put anything on, just to make sure that you have it on every area of your body. Sometimes when we get outside to run, like certain things will like ride up. And so making sure that you have sunscreen on every part of your body before you actually put anything on, just make sure that you're not getting burned in places where you might not have been able to put on the sunscreen after you put on your clothes. And then last, any sort of like vest or hydration pack. I would just make sure that you have the essentials to store somewhere. So like extra sunscreen, I didn't put in here, but like extra chafing cream. I use like the anti-chafe gel, and honestly, any brand is good for that. But I would just make sure that you have that in there too. Water, electrolytes, any sort of fuel, sunglasses, etc. Just making sure that you have the essentials, especially for longer runs. You're going to need some of these things to restock. So again, don't let this be a crap, I don't have anything today and I feel like nothing's going to hold everything I want. Runners have come up with a million different types of things, running companies, I should say. So all the hydration vests, the hydration packs, I have a really nice hydration belt, as many of you know, and it fits so much. I really like the Spy belts. I'll put the brand name of that in here for shorter runs. And then if you are more of a hydration belt person and you want the bottles on you, I would say buy it, test it, make sure that it suits you. If you're more a hydration pack, test that out. I just don't want you ladies going out without anything. And I definitely don't want you just thinking of it the morning of or the afternoon of. I want there to be some sort of plan in place. So just making sure that before you head out, you have what you need, because it's just going to be a little bit more grueling than what we've been used to the last couple months. Questions on any of that before I shift off of what to wear and bring? All right, maybe we'll get questions at the end. All right, so heat and humidity. I just want to break down like what I'm talking about and why I'm saying it's so grueling, and hopefully have you ladies walk away and just have this make a little bit more sense on just understanding when you head out there if things have felt harder than they've needed to. I just want to stress like what we want to look for these next couple months. So this is not applicable to just the summer. This is applicable to everything. Your body does not know pace, it knows effort. And that's why I harp on easy effort runs. And I like you guys to not get tied to a specific pace, because every day is going to be different depending on what you're able to bring. When the heat and humidity rises, though, it does increase our physical stress on the body. And therefore, when we increase that physical stress, it's going to increase the intensity and effort of our run. So things are just naturally going to feel harder. Our core body temperature is rising. As a result, our heart rate is going to rise. This means that that perceived effort that we're giving and that true effort is required by our body to maintain that pace. That's not possible in the summer. So naturally, that easy quote unquote pace is going to slow down. This makes sure that we continue working at the right effort level to complete our runs and not overwork your body on an easy day. So let's say, for example, in the winter, you go out for an easy effort run. I'm going to keep this super simple, and you run 10 minutes per mile with your easy effort. Let's say you hover around there. You head out in the summer, or sorry, winter, 10 minutes per mile, and let's say your heart rate is 145. You head out in the summer and you try to hit that 10-minute per mile pace, and you see your heart rate is 160. And you're like, what the heck? And things feel a lot harder. This is why. And so what we call that is the slowdown factor. This happens to every single runner, myself included. No one is excluded from this group. This happens to the most elite runners every single summer. Because of this, we are going to have to slow down to maintain the right easy effort. So in that example, you might slow down to maybe an 11-minute mile to finally hit around that 145 beat per minute. And that's because of the heat and the humidity. So this does vary from runner to runner, but it's normal to slow down anywhere between 30 to 90 seconds or more in that heat and humidity. What makes it harder, so what makes you slow down more, is going to be all the external factors that I'm always harping on. So a low night of sleep, increased amount of stress, not fueling before the run, not bringing out enough water with you during the run. All of these things are going to make you slow down more. I don't want your ego to take a hit, and I don't want you to keep pushing. I just want you to slow down and understand why. So the combination of those external factors and just the slowdown factor from the heat and the humidity are going to make me slow down, and that's okay because I am maintaining that right effort, and that's all that matters, because our body does not know pace. It only knows effort. Does that drop a 1 if that makes sense? Drop a 0 if you are confused or have questions and I want to answer them. Okay, we'll take it. Other folks are, I think a couple folks are listening in on the car, but okay, that sounds good. The other thing to consider here is it does take time to adapt. So typically about 14 days of very consistent running. This doesn't have to be back-to-back days. We would never be doing that, but 14 days of consistent running for your body to adjust. It might take longer, so really just be patient. I personally, if you have access to a treadmill, I would leave your longer or mid-distance runs on the tread if it's going to be a super hot day, and start with some of the shorter runs to get outside. Obviously, if you are fully outdoors, just give yourself some grace and take into account what I reviewed on the last slide. If you can, start with those shorter runs and build them up. You're going to sweat more, so it's going to be a new feeling, but you're going to lose fewer electrolytes as you sweat. So that means your body's going to be able to better regulate your body temp as you run. So your body's naturally adapting, which is exactly what we want. By doing this, what I have personally found is like this little trial period of just getting adapted for the first couple weeks is weird, especially if you've never done it consistently before. But by doing this, I think you will very naturally also build up your mental confidence. And once you have that mental confidence, you'll be good to go for the rest of the summer. What will happen, I didn't include this on the slide, I should have, but what will happen is naturally your body's going to get adjusted to that heat and humidity. So then when it cools down, you will have progressed because your body has regulated itself to understand those various efforts and when to pull back. When there's cooler temperatures, we will have already been building our endurance, already been building some of our speed. You're going to see those incremental shifts when it cools down. For those that have been with me through multiple seasons, like a summer prior, drop a 1 if you have seen this happen, just so I'm not BSing you guys. Awesome. Great. And I've seen it myself too. So just kind of be patient and know that come the fall, when things are cooling down, you will still see in progress. So I don't want you guys to feel like you're regressing. We are still progressing. Another thing I wanted to review is just adjusting our pace and dropping in a guide. So one thing I want to talk about is heat score. We've talked a lot about maintaining the right effort, and that's really for easy effort runs. If you all are interested, there is something called a heat score that you can utilize. So you can, of course, go back to this YouTube recording once I post it and just kind of grab the slides or grab a screenshot when I post it on the next slide, but I'll explain more about this. So we can use our temperature and our dew point to find our heat score. Only use this guide about what I'm about to share for your speed days. Easy effort is by effort and heart rate. It is not by pace. So I don't want you to take the next couple slides and start using it for easy effort. I'm always going to be looking at your heart rate. I'm going to be looking at some pacing. I'm going to be looking at what I program for intensity and training stress, and a couple other things I'll pull on the back end to make sure that you're actually maintaining the right effort. I don't want you to use this for easy effort. I want you to use this for your speed days if you're interested. It does help adjust our paces. So if you're curious about this, like really knowing that you're training and racing in the correct heat adjusted effort zone, if you don't want to do this, this is okay. I can still get a very good sense in Training Peaks of how we're doing. The other thing I'll call out before I share this kind of formula is Please keep your qualitative feedback coming in Training Peak. So for some of you who have been with me for a full season where I've asked you to drop commentary in the summer, I ask you to drop what the temperature was and what the humidity was, because those pieces of information can give me some detail. Easiest way to do this is to drop the comment right when you finish your workout. So for example, if you were like, temperature was 72 and humidity 80% or something like that. So just some sort of average. So that encourages you to also look at what those factors are going to be before you go out for your run. So for example, if it's 70 degrees, but 92% humidity, well, damn, that's going to be a really hard run because it's extra humid. So don't just look at your temperature. I would look at the temperature, humidity, obviously dew points, which is something that we'll learn in a second. I would also look at the wind to see if you're going to get any bursts of wind and kind of go from there. Our heat score is our temperature plus our dew point. Dew point is not humidity. It's the current temp at which the air needs to be cooled to in order to achieve a relative humidity of 100%. You can very easily see the dew point in any given weather app. If you've never paid attention to it, you might be like, is it in the weather app that I use? I promise you it is. This is how to use it. I reference Running Explain. She and I are friends, Coach Elizabeth. Does anyone follow? Drop a 1 if you follow Running Explained on Instagram. And if not, I definitely would. Okay. Go give her a follow. She's a good friend of mine, but I'm going to reference her guide in terms of how to figure out your heat score. So this is from one of her older Instagram posts, but essentially if you just look in the middle here, the heat score, like I said, is temperature plus dew point. So she's going to give an example. Let's say your temperature is 75 degrees and the dew point is 70. You total them for a heat score of 145. And she'll show you how to adjust your pace. I'll show that on the next slide. But when you do the calculations, you'll see your pace without the adjustments. Let's say I have you at a speed workout with 8 minutes per mile. You adjust that by 2 to 3%. That gives you a range of where you should be with the heat score. And she shows you how to do the simple math below it. So you can, of course, grab a screenshot on the call right now if you want. And I will go back if anyone wants to go back, but I just want to show you the next slide. So if you look at this chart here, you can see if we go to 145, which is the heat score, right? So 70 plus 75, 145, we go down to our heat score adjustments. We're somewhere between the 140 and 150, which is how she came up with the 2 to 3%. So it's an estimate. I personally would overestimate, so I would go higher. I would go to that like 3 to 4.5% adjustment. But you can see if your heat score is under 100, you don't need to adjust any of the speed that I have in there for you. But if it's higher, I would recommend adjusting. Again, you do not have to do this. The only reason I wanted to share this is because sometimes I'm not with you in the moments that you're heading out for your run. So if you have a speed day and you know it's going to be hot and humid and the dew point is going to be high, this is a really good chart to use to make sure that you understand how much you should be adjusting. You don't have to do this. I can still pull everything as long as you just drop a comment on what your heat and humidity was. If you want, you can also tell me the dew point and I'll do my own calculations, but I don't want to do more. I don't want to give you guys more than you need. So does that make sense? Like we take the total and then we do our calculations, which again, she shows you how to calculate down here and you're able to get that adjustment. So it's using this to get your total and then this to do the math. Please put in the chat if you're so lost. I need to explain something. Or drop a 1 if you get it. Okay, awesome. And definitely, if you didn't grab a screenshot now, but also just go back to this recording and grab a screenshot tomorrow or the next day for this slide and the next slide. I think this is super useful if you're on your own and you want to just do some quick math. If you see that I have a speed day and it needs an adjustment and you know it needs an adjustment and you still don't slow down, we're going to have a conversation. So whether that's using this guide or when you drop it and you're like, hey, Karina, it was 85 degrees and 80% humidity, I didn't go any slower. Or we're going to just chat through that to make sure that you know that we want to slow down a little bit more. The other good thing is you can use your own feedback, right? So even if we think about effort here, some of the key things I love to think through is if I am absolutely huffing and puffing and my coach told me that something should feel comfortably hard or a little bit of a push pace, but not all out, and I'm huffing and puffing, then I'm not going at the right pace for what's really should be happening in that workout. So really just trusting your gut and being intentional and listening to your body. We don't need to go all out. Hopefully you guys caught my Instagram post yesterday. Speed days are not about hitting everything 100%. There's external factors that are going to affect things, being very in tune with that, and then being very in tune with the environment and what's going on with the temperatures will be those types of things that are going to dictate if we're in those right intensities and zones. Great. Final tips, and then I'll take any questions that just anyone has in terms of anything. It doesn't have to be off the slide. If I didn't hit something that you're curious about, I'll provide that insight. But tips, obviously, if we've learned nothing else, focus on effort over pace, really training by how you feel, that example that I just described. This really allows us to get those adaptations without overtraining. The biggest risk with summer is just always pushing when we don't need to be going all out. And so really being honest with yourself and training by how we feel and knowing that those external factors will influence our performance even more. Starting our run hydrated and keeping hydrated during and after. Again, we don't want to chug water. We want to take thoughtful sips. So sip, don't chug. I would encourage electrolytes for every single person on this call, really making sure that you're taking them, but you're not chugging them. If you have ever run into any sort of stomach issues during the summer and you think it's because it's a certain gel that didn't agree with your stomach, or you took too many electrolytes, whatever the case may be, oftentimes it's that we just didn't disperse it appropriately, especially if the gel or the chew or whatever the case might be might not be quote unquote agreeing with your stomach. I would actually take a look at your hydration. They should kind of nicely complement each other. If one is lacking, likely that's where that stomach issue is coming from. The other thing I would look into is how you fueled before. If there was nothing in your stomach or not enough, that's going to cause issues. And then just having electrolytes or water too soon before you head out for that run. I personally would alter your route for shade if possible, or start earlier or run later. I would change your attitude. So this is going to be a grueling summer. Summer training is incredibly hard. It's the hardest season to train for. Personally, I think it's much harder than winter because of a bunch of different factors. I personally would embrace this period and just take it for what it is. Focus on, again, how fast we're going to feel in the fall, and know that if we train by how we are feeling and we continue to honor our body, inevitably that's going to pay off. Last but not least, summer running is all about consistency. I had to throw this one in because I'm a consistency over perfection girl. I would say do the work while listening to your body. And again, you will see that pay off. For those that are just starting in these temperatures, really be patient, trust that process. Remember the adjustment period. It does take a couple weeks. It can take longer, especially if you're not listening to your body and you're not being truly thoughtful on how you feel and reflecting that in your training. But just give yourself some grace. It's a bit of a learning period. And that's also exactly what I'm here for, to help you give that feedback. Sarah said, what if that effort turns into a walk for an easy pace? Is that okay? Yes, it is. Sarah, I also would challenge you. There is some flexibility in that heart rate range, depending on how slow you are used to going. I would challenge you to maybe look at, am I starting out too fast? And is that turning into a walk for me? If it's super, super hot and humid, sometimes, yes, walking at the start and that adaptation period is what needs to happen before you even get into a slow jog. So if we were walking 6 to 8 weeks into summer training, I would probably peel back more layers to see where we need to make some tweaks. And I likely would have already given you that feedback before that point. So definitely for the beginning, it is okay to walk. Does that answer your question? Cool. Any other questions? You can drop them in the chat or you can come off mute. On shorter runs, should we be bringing out just water or water with electrolytes? I would test it, Moretta. So if you can go out in shorter runs and test out the normal amount of water that you would normally bring. So whether that's the amount that's in your hydration vest, and just kind of take those thoughtful sips. You don't have to deplete the whole thing or use your hydration belt. I would test out water first. If you end up feeling super dehydrated, or you get a headache, or you get a muscle cramp, that's probably a sign that we need some more electrolytes. Also, Moretta, a sign that we might need some more fuel before the run. So just kind of voice those things to me as well, as I know we work on fueling in your plan. So does that answer your question? Awesome. Annie, hydration vest recommendations. I have a belt, but is nowhere near enough for a long run. Okay, actually a couple of things, Annie. So let me address the belt first. With the belt, if it's nowhere near enough for a long run, I would first look into if there's like a water fountain along your route. Obviously, if not, that's fine. Second thing I would look into is if you can leave an extra water bottle like on your lawn or something. I know you live in the suburbs, so just like finding a little route where you can do a loop back and pick up more water. Third thing, Annie, is actually bringing out, and I've told some of the ladies on this call this, bringing out a disposable water bottle. So going to pick up a water bottle at like CVS, supermarket, Walgreens, like a 10 or 12 ounce, and bringing that along for like the first 30 minutes of your run, Annie, using that disposable water bottle while you have your hydration belt hooked up around you. And then you can use the disposable first, toss that, and then use your hydration belt for the remainder. Does that make sense? Cool. And then, yeah, I think a couple of you ladies use vests. So if you have recommendations for Annie, please drop them in the chat. I know, Delaney, you said you have the Lululemon one, so.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I haven't found like the thing I'm most comfortable with yet. So it's like, I do have a belt and it's fine, but like, I'm not like super attached to it. So I feel very open to like, if I find something that works better, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. I think there's a lot of good vests, Annie, too. The other thing I would recommend if you're interested in the vest, is just reading about the reviews because everyone is so particular. So just making sure that it's like gonna suit your needs. And then the other thing I would consider for every single lady on this call is if you have a race coming up that we are training for, please go read what they allow on the course. Some courses do not allow hydration vests. I know Chicago does not. You cannot wear a hydration vest. And so it would be very wise to practice with something that you know that you are allowed to bring. Yes, the Delaney said I had given her that disposable bottle trick. Highly, highly encourage that, Annie, if you still want to like play around with the belt and you'll get your water needs. Martina said, I have a Nathan's one, which I've liked, but never used it for a race. Yeah, disposable water bottle. I worked with a nutritionist, was it a year or two ago? And she gave me that recommendation because I was using a belt and I was like, I asked her, I was like, is it silly to go out and buy something at CVS? And she was like, no, I recommend people do that all the time. So I used that for my entire marathon training last summer and it worked out really well. Is it annoying to hold a disposable water bottle? Yes, but it's short-lived. It's only like 30 to 40 minutes and then you toss the thing. So what other questions can I answer? Ask me anything. This is the time. And there are no dumb questions. Sunscreen Rex. I use
the Supergoop one.
Yeah, I use Supergoop. Love that, Annie. Totally agree. I also use just like my daily moisturizer. It has sunscreen in it. CeraVe, I think I use, and it's perfect. It doesn't like sweat in my eyes. Serve. I haven't heard of that.
That was an autocorrect.
Oh.
It was supposed to be CeraVe.
Okay. Awesome. Yes. That's yeah, same. We use the same one. Oh yeah. Okay. For some reason, Delaney, if I was interpreting it as face sunscreen, but full body.
They do have a full body one also, that you can get in like a pretty big, like we have one, a Supergoop one that I can't remember what it's called, but it is a full body one. And we have like a big container that has like a pump that we just keep in the laundry room. And then like the kids can use it on their way out the door, like everybody. And it's like, it doesn't smell and it's not sticky. Yeah. I think it is called Play. Yeah. So that's a good one.
Awesome. Yeah. I haven't used that one. I'll need to try it because I love Supergoop. So Oh, and then Martina gave one. Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, I I wrote sunscreen in this deck, and I'm so inconsistent with like the full body sunscreen. I need to be a lot better about it, but I'll just use whatever I have on hand, but I should probably use something a little bit better. And you guys will, I'm just catching up on the chat. You guys will also learn by trial and error. Does that create for sometimes uncomfortable runs? Yeah, maybe, but then you really start to optimize for what works best for you, especially for those training for any summer races or early fall races. Like those temperatures are very unpredictable. So just going into that race, knowing that you have tested out every single thing that you could encounter, in terms of just like what to wear, what sunscreen you're using, even like head to toe, just making sure that you're covered, chafing, like just making sure all those things are addressed. Really encourage doing that during these next couple months. What other questions? Trying to think of anything that I might have missed. Dehydration is the biggest one. I just want to make sure that if that happens, you guys go back to this and just kind of dissect what could be going wrong. Oftentimes it is just not being hydrated enough and not fueling enough. So especially in the summer, as we're increasing mileage, our bodies need more carbs. Carbs is our body's preferred source of fuel. There is no way to go wrong here in terms of just eating more. It does support what we need, especially as the temperatures rise, and just playing around with some of the fuel and trying some of that out. Again, you can't go wrong. There's like a million different things. If you don't like one consistency, try another consistency. There's chews, there's glues, there's gels. There's just a bunch of different options and a bunch of different flavors. So yeah, you can likely find something that suits your needs. Just want to make sure that if you guys feel dehydrated, that's the first spot that we look.
Oh, Karina just reminded me, will you talk a bit about salt sticks and like when
Yeah.
to try or not to try or what to consider?
Yeah, so salt sticks, let me get the link up of what I use. 1 second. Salt sticks are really good for our sodium, which is something that I talked about. They are yummy. Actually, it's so funny. So let me share this link. I have a funny story about these things that like I just was like, why did this happen to me? Hold on. There we go. Okay, so those are the salt sticks that I use. I need to get you guys back. Hold on. Ugh. For some reason I can't see you guys, but those are the salt sticks that I use, and salt sticks are really great. You can take them with you on your runs. Those are the ones I use because they're little tablets. These are really good to replenish during our run because we naturally lose a lot more sodium as we run. And in order to get back our sodium, the way that we get it back very quickly is taking some form of salt. And obviously salt is sodium. So salt sticks are really good for runners. There's a bunch of different flavors. This is also a trial and error. So I personally take 1 to 2 of these tablets every 20 minutes while I'm out on my run. I also sometimes I'll take 1 or 2 before I go out. This just makes sure that in conjunction with the water and the electrolytes that you are just building back the sodium that you're losing. Which flavor is good was the question. There is no right answer. You will have to choose what you want and what sounds appetizing to you. I use mixed berry, which is I think what that one linked to, but they have like 6 or 7 different flavors. I think they might have like smaller quantities too, Joe. If you wanted to test out just a few, you can Amazon salt sticks and get some other quantity amount. I really like these. These are really an adjustment to get used to because when you put them in your mouth, like salt sometimes goes flying. But again, you're getting the sodium needs. And to answer your question, Martina, which I think I'm veering off of, but to understand if you need them, if you're finding that you are fueling what you think is correctly before and during the run, yet you're still getting dehydrated, I would try adding in salt sticks if you have not already added in fuel and electrolytes. So this is not like the first thing we need to be doing. I would do those other things first. Then I would try adding in salt sticks. I would start out with one every 30 minutes to an hour, and then really figure out what works best from your body from there. Like I said, now I'm doing 1 to 2 every 20 minutes, but that is just because I have realized I lose sodium very quickly. Would that be in addition to something like Noon in my water? So yeah, there's electrolytes and then there's salt sticks. So I would use this as a supplement. I personally would be bringing these along for the ride outside of the Noon, because like Noon is like a liquid IV. It's like another electrolyte brand. I personally use Scratch. And so you're getting sodium there, but these salt sticks are fast acting sodium. You just get it very quickly in your body, which is what you need sometimes if you get dehydrated. Does that answer your question, Martina? I can't really remember how
Yeah,
you
no,
phrased it.
it was a vague, broad question,
Yeah.
so thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? Let me stop the recording then.